He pushed me in, then pulled me out. This story comes from Andy. He was about 14 or 15 at the time. Andy's family had just moved to a remote rural area in Georgia. Their house sat at the end of a long, muddy dirt road, surrounded by miles of cotton fields. Andy's dad, Frank, was a total skeptic. He didn't believe in ghosts or superstitions. He had one major passion: pool. He was a shark, and he'd frequently take his custom cue stick down to the local dive bar in town to hustle the locals. Andy's mom, Martha, was the opposite. She was deeply religious and very superstitious. She used to warn him, "Frank, this is old land. There's history here. You shouldn't be riding those back roads so late at night." Frank would just laugh. "I'm a grown man, Martha. Nothing out there but possums and deer." It started on a Friday night. Around 9 p.m., Andy and his mom were watching TV when the landline rang. Martha picked it up. "Frank, what happened? Again? You slid into the ditch?" "All right, hang on. Andy, go help your father." She turned to Andy. "Your dad ran his motorcycle off the road again. He says the road is washed out. Grab a flashlight and run down to the turn." Andy grabbed a flashlight and jogged about 200 yards down the pitch-black dirt road. When he got there, he saw his dad's heavy motorcycle lying in the drainage ditch, which was about 4 feet deep. Frank was down in the mud, straining to push the bike back up the bank. Frank was facing the bike, his back to the darkness, talking over his shoulder to someone behind the bike. "Thanks, buddy. Just a little harder. 1, 2, 3, push." Andy shined his light down. There was no one there, just his dad, red-faced, pushing air. "Dad, I'm here." "Oh, Andy, come down here and grab the handlebars. This nice fella is helping me push from the back." Andy paused. "What fella, Dad?" "The guy right behind the bike. Are you blind?" Andy didn't want to argue. He jumped down, grabbed the bars, and together they heaved the bike onto the road. Once they were up, Frank turned back to the empty ditch, dusted off his hands, and smiled. "Thanks a million, pal. Can I give you a lift home?" He stood there, waiting for an answer, then nodded. "Oh, you live right here? All right then, thanks again." He turned and scolded Andy. "Where are your manners? Why didn't you thank the man?" Andy was spooked. "Dad, there was no one there." "You're crazy. He was standing right there. Let's go home." That night, Frank swore he had swerved to avoid a massive washout, a section of road eroded by rain in the middle of the lane. But Andy had just walked that road. It was bumpy, sure, but there was no washout. The next night, Saturday. Same thing. 9 p.m. The phone rings. Andy runs out. He finds his dad in the same ditch, apologizing to the empty air. "Sorry, buddy, I'm so clumsy. Down here 2 nights in a row. Damn road." When they got the bike up, Frank yelled at Andy again for ignoring the neighbor. "You're making me look bad. Look, he got mad and walked off." By the third night, Martha was terrified. "Frank, 3 times? Maybe someone is messing with you?" "It's not a ghost, Martha. It's the road." Frank went to the pool hall anyway, and like clockwork, at 9 p.m. he ended up in that ditch. This time, when Andy pulled him out, he couldn't take it anymore. "Dad, I swear to God, there is no one here. It's just you and me." Frank got angry. "Don't lie to me. He was just brushing the dirt off my jacket. Are you blind?" "You're the one who's blind, Dad. Look." Frank pointed confidently at the ditch. "He's standing right." "Huh?" He rubbed his eyes. The ditch was empty, silent. "That's weird. He was just there." When they got home and told Martha, she didn't hesitate. "You met a ghost, Frank. Think about it. Who hangs out in a drainage ditch every night just waiting for you to crash so they can help? He's pushing you in, Frank. Then he pretends to help you up to mess with your head." Frank finally started to shake. "But he looked so real. He talked to me." The next morning, Martha made Frank take them back to the spot. They walked along the edge of the ditch. Martha used a stick to beat back the thick kudzu and tall weeds growing in the overgrown lot right next to the road, right where Frank kept crashing. "Here," she yelled. Hidden behind the weeds was an old, weathered tombstone. It was gray and chipped, but they could read the date. A man who died in 1995, over a decade prior, only 35 years old. It was likely an old family grave from a homestead that used to be there. Martha shivered. "That's him. He lives right here. Every time you come roaring past on that bike, you disturb him, so he shoves you into the ditch and pulls you out for a laugh." Frank's face went white. Martha immediately sent him to the store. He came back with a bouquet of flowers and a bottle of whiskey. They went back to the grave. Frank poured the whiskey into the dirt. "Look, buddy, I didn't know. I'm sorry. I won't ride late anymore. Let's call a truce." From that day on, Frank still played pool, but he was home by 7 p.m. before the sun went down. He never rode that stretch of road in the dark again. And strangely enough, the massive washout, or sinkhole he kept seeing, never appeared again. The road was fine. Andy said they eventually moved away, but he never forgot the lesson. Ghosts don't always scream or rattle chains. Sometimes they just mess with you in very practical physical ways. The JIKO BUKKEN house. This story comes from Kayla. It happened in 2016. Kayla and her husband Ben moved to Japan for work. Ben was an IT engineer, and Kayla taught English. At first, they stayed at Uncle Joe's house, Ben's uncle, a U.S. veteran who had lived in Osaka for over 30 years. But the young couple wanted their own space and wanted to experience life in a traditional Japanese home. Despite Uncle Joe's repeated warnings about the costs and potential problems of an old house, they were determined to find one. They discovered a house in the outskirts of Kyoto. It was an old 2-story wooden house, a kominka, and the rent was unbelievably cheap. The real estate agent, a middle-aged Japanese man, casually explained that the owner wanted someone to look after the house, hence the low price. They moved in. The house was beautiful in an old-fashioned way. Dark wooden floors, sliding paper doors, and the rich smell of tatami mats. However, it was cold, a chill that didn't seem related to the Japanese winter. During the first week, Kayla felt uneasy. The house's bathroom was strange. It wasn't in the main living area, but at the end of a long, cold wooden hallway, completely separated from the bedrooms. Even though a modern toilet had been installed, the space remained gloomy and cramped. Soon, Kayla and Ben started experiencing unusual events. Every night, they heard thumping footsteps along the wooden hallway, even while both were in bed, sleeping on futon mattresses laid on tatami mats. Sliding doors creaked open and shut on their own. They thought it was just the house settling, but to be safe, they followed Japanese customs, placing small piles of salt, Mauricio, at the corners of the house to ward off spirits. One night, Kayla was sleeping when she felt someone hug her from behind. The arms were stiff and cold, gripping her ribs. She thought it was Ben and squirmed, telling him to let go. The grip tightened, making it hard to breathe. She tried to turn and saw Ben was fast asleep on the far side of the futon. Kayla struggled, and the hug suddenly vanished. The next morning, she noticed a bruise on her waist. A few days later, it was Ben's turn. Around 2 a.m., he got up to use the bathroom. Walking down the cold wooden hallway, he returned to the living room, where they had a dining table, and saw someone. Under the dim moonlight filtering through the paper doors, he saw an old Japanese woman. She wore a dark kimono, her hair tied high, sitting in seiza on a zabuton in the middle of the room. She was perfectly still, back straight, facing the tokonoma alcove. Ben rubbed his eyes, thinking he was seeing things. "Excuse me? Who are you?" The old woman slowly turned her head. Her face was pale as if powdered, expressionless. She looked at Ben, then slowly shook her head. She muttered a rapid, angry string of Japanese words Ben couldn't understand. Ben froze, terrified, and ran back to the bedroom, pulling Kayla out of bed. Armed with a baseball bat, they checked the living room. It was empty, but the cushion in the center of the room was indented, as if someone had been sitting there for a long time. They called Uncle Joe. He said, "You guys got a JIKO BUKKEN, a house with a death. When in Rome, people in Japan won't leave it alone. Try putting some sake and rice balls on the table. Apologize for disturbing her. See what happens." Ben and Kayla followed his advice. They placed sake and rice on the living room table, lit candles, bowed their heads apologizing in English, and went to sleep. That night, Kayla sleepwalked. She woke up with her forehead banging against the toilet tank. Opening her eyes, she saw herself sitting in the cold bathroom at the end of the hallway. Panicked, she stood up and opened the door. From the bathroom, looking into the living room, she saw a horrifying sight. The offering table was still there. The old woman in the kimono was sitting there. She wasn't eating. She lifted a bowl of rice and threw it to the floor. Crash. She snapped around to look at Kayla. This time she stood up, small and hunched, yet her shadow on the wall was enormous and terrifying. She raised a bony finger toward the front door. Her mouth emitted a piercing shriek. "Deet, Ike! Get out!" Kayla screamed, running back to the bedroom, banging on the door. Ben opened it and pulled her inside. They heard heavy footsteps thump, 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 running along the hallway, stopping right outside their bedroom. Then came scraping noises along the thin wooden door. They stayed awake all night. Ben clutched a cross and Kayla cried. The next morning, they fled. Uncle Joe came to pick them up. They didn't dare return to Pack and had to hire movers to collect their belongings. Later, Uncle Joe investigated for them. It turned out the real estate agent was the son of the deceased homeowner. The mother had died in that house, but she had been extremely strict, traditional, and hated foreigners. She didn't want anyone non-Japanese living in her home. Her son knew this. He was greedy. He would rent the house to foreigners who didn't know the history, take the deposit and rent for 6 months at a time, knowing no one would last more than a week before being driven out by her spirit. When the tenants fled, he kept the money and listed the property to trap new victims. Kayla and Ben lost money, but were thankful to be alive. They moved into a modern apartment in Osaka and vowed never to live in an old Japanese house again. The Swollen Face. This story comes from Lauren. Lauren was a freshman at a long-established university in Alabama, deep south. She lived in a dorm suite designed for 6 students within an old sorority house. The layout of the suite included a shared living room, a large bathroom, and 3 separate bedrooms, bedroom A, B, and C, connected to the living room. Each bedroom had 2 twin beds. Lauren stayed in bedroom A. Initially, the suite was fully occupied by 6 white girls. But after a few months, Lauren's roommate in bedroom A moved out. The bed next to Lauren remained empty. During that time, Lauren and the other girls in the suite noticed something strange. The faucet in the shared bathroom would often turn on by itself. Not fully, just a gentle trickle, as if someone was lightly washing their hands. Every morning, the bathroom floor was soaking wet. They reported it to maintenance, but no cause was found. One day, the housing director brought in a new student to fill the empty spot. Her name was Tanya. Tanya was an exchange student from Kenya. She was tall, with dark skin. Tanya moved into bedroom A, taking the bed right next to Lauren. In the first week, strange things began. One morning, Tanya complained, "Who was in the bathroom scrubbing at 2 a.m. last night?" The sound of the brush on the floor was too loud. I couldn't sleep. The others were baffled. Lauren insisted it had been completely quiet. Tanya frowned, her expression serious. No, someone was there. I even heard her muttering curses. The other girls ignored it. Tanya began to grow afraid. She told Lauren, "My grandmother taught me how to sense spirits. There's something unhealthy in this room. It hates me." That's why Tanya began praying. Each night, she would sit cross-legged on her bed, swaying slightly, reciting prayers in her native language. The climax came on Wednesday night. Tanya was exhausted and fell asleep without praying. Around 1 a.m., Lauren, half asleep, heard Tanya's bed creak. Creak, creak. Lauren opened her eyes and saw Tanya sitting upright, back perfectly straight, legs extended, staring at the ceiling with wide eyes. Then, Tanya stood up. She stepped out of bedroom A with heavy, stiff steps. Lauren, terrified, quietly followed to the doorway to watch. Tanya went into the shared living room. She approached bedroom B, opened the door, and stood still, head bowed, staring at the two white girls asleep inside. After a minute, she closed the door and continued to bedroom C, repeating the same action. Her movements resembled a strict house mistress inspecting to see if her guests were behaving. After checking the other two rooms, Tanya returned to bedroom A. Lauren quickly jumped under the covers, pretending to sleep, heart pounding. Tanya entered, closing the door behind her. She did not return to her own bed, but went straight to Lauren's. Tanya leaned down, bringing her face close to Lauren's. Her breath was cold and musty. Lauren could no longer endure it and opened her eyes. "Tanya, what are you doing?" Tanya's face had changed. Her facial muscles twitched, her eyes filled with hatred and contempt. Then, in a hoarse voice with a thick old southern accent, she said, "Why aren't you asleep yet? That thing, why is it here?" Lauren shivered. That voice was not Tanya's. "This house does not welcome filthy outsiders. It's dirtying my bed. Get it out. Get it out." After speaking, Tanya shuddered violently, then collapsed onto the floor with a loud thud. The fall woke her. She moaned in pain, clutching her head. Lauren immediately turned on the light, yelling for the other girls. 5 girls rushed in to help Tanya. She looked around in utter confusion, then burst into tears. "I knew it. I knew she would possess me," Tanya shouted through her tears. "Who is she? What are you talking about?" Lauren pressed for answers. Tanya, trembling, recounted the events. "The past few nights when I was praying, I didn't dare open my eyes. Every time I did, I saw her, an old white woman dressed in old-fashioned filthy clothes. She would stand in the corner of the room, pointing at me. She kept muttering, 'You do not belong here. Get out of my house.' Last night," Tanya sobbed, "I was too tired. I fell asleep. In my dream, she climbed onto my bed, pressing down on my chest. She leaned her face close to mine. You cannot imagine it. Her face, it was huge, swollen, round like a bowl, skin tight and glistening, about to burst, full of fluid. She pressed that swollen face against mine so I couldn't breathe." The room went silent, cold with fear. Suddenly, Lauren stared at Tanya. "Tanya, your face." Everyone looked closely. Tanya's face was changing before their eyes. Her skin stretched unnaturally, her cheeks inflated, her eyelids swollen, covering her pupils. It did not look like an allergy. It was as if someone were pumping water under her skin. Tanya's face was swelling, distorting. "Ah, it hurts. My skin burns," Tanya screamed, clutching her face. The 6 girls panicked. "Call 911, call for help," someone shouted. Lauren grabbed the phone, but there was no signal. The entire suite had lost reception. "Outside, get her to the car." They tried to carry Tanya, her eyes now completely swollen, to the main door, but the thick wooden door wouldn't budge. It was jammed. All 6 girls pulled, banged, and screamed, but it was as if the door were welded shut. They were trapped. "She won't let us leave," Tanya groaned, her voice now distorted by her swollen mouth. "She wants to make me explode." No one dared to sleep or return to their rooms. All 6 girls huddled in the center of the living room, lights on. They grabbed ice from the fridge to apply to Tanya's face, but it did nothing. Her face remained swollen, red, and hot. They held each other, prayed, and kept watch over Tanya's breathing for 4 long, excruciating hours. Occasionally, they heard giggling and the trickle of water from the bathroom, as if mocking them. At last, with the first sunlight around 6 a.m., the main door suddenly swung open. At the same time, the swelling on Tanya's face began to subside rapidly, like a balloon losing air. The exhausted girl collapsed onto the sofa. They immediately took Tanya to the hospital, but doctors found no allergies or medical cause. That afternoon, Tanya moved out immediately. Later, Lauren researched the history of the building. It had been built on the site of a cruel plantation family's mansion. The matriarch had suffered dropsy, edema, and died painfully with a swollen, deformed body. She had been notorious for hating black people. Her spirit had returned, using Tanya's body to reenact her own painful death and drive the poor girl out of her house. The tiptoeing feet. This story comes from Bella. Bella tells of her time in high school in Ohio. It was a massive red brick building built in the 1950s with long, echoing hallways and a ventilation system that always seemed to be groaning. The school was so big there were sections students rarely visited, specifically the girls' restroom in the West Wing. The rumors about the West Wing had existed long before Bella arrived. Upperclassmen whispered that years ago, a girl had been brutally murdered by an intruder right in the last stall. They said her ghost remained, filled with rage and hate. Anyone caught spreading the rumors too loudly would be called into the principal's office and threatened with suspension to keep it quiet. At first, Bella, a practical tough girl, thought it was just hazing for the freshmen, but in her sophomore year, her skepticism was shattered. It was a gloomy Tuesday. At lunch, Bella and her best friend Chloe had eaten the spicy bean burritos from the cafeteria. The consequences were immediate. During second period history, both of their stomachs started cramping violently. Unable to wait for the bell, they asked for a hall pass. Seeing how pale they were, the teacher broke the rules and let them go together. They ran to the nearest restroom. Ironically, it was the haunted one in the West Wing. Classes were in session, so the hallway was dead silent, just the sound of their sneakers squeaking on the linoleum. Inside, the air was unnaturally cold. Chloe took the first stall. Bella took the second. Chloe finished first. "I'll wait outside. It stinks in here." Bella, still struggling, called out, "Yeah, but stand right by the door. Don't leave me alone." "I know. Hurry up." The heavy main door slammed shut. Bang! Leaving Bella alone in the silence. She tried to focus, but the quiet was so heavy it started to play tricks on her ears. Suddenly, the main door groaned open. Creak. Slow, heavy footsteps entered on the tiled floor. Clomp, clomp, clomp. "You forgot something, Chloe?" Bella called out. No answer, just the footsteps, moving closer to her stall. Bella thought Chloe was pulling a prank. "Cut it out, I know it's you. It's not funny." Still silence. The footsteps stopped right in front of Bella's stall door. Instinctively, Bella looked down at the wide gap under the door, a standard feature in American high schools. What she saw made her heart stop. It was a pair of bare feet, not sneakers, not flats. Bare, skeletal, chalk-white feet with purple, bruised toes. And what chilled Bella to the bone was the toenails, painted a dark blood red, the polish chipped and peeling. In this school, no student ever walked barefoot. "Chloe, why did you take your shoes off?" Bella asked, her voice trembling. The feet began to move. They didn't walk. They tiptoed. Slowly, the heels lifted off the floor. They rose higher and higher, unnaturally high, until Bella felt like the person outside was being pulled up toward the ceiling by an invisible rope, with only the very tips of their toes dragging on the ground. Then came the sound. Wheeze. Wheeze. A wet, rattling breath coming from right above the stall door, like someone with a slashed windpipe trying to suck in air. And then, drip, drip. A drop of dark red liquid hit the white tile floor, right next to the pale feet. Then a second drop, then a third. Blood. Fresh blood began to patter down, splashing, slowly pooling and seeping under the stall door, touching Bella's shoe. Bella was paralyzed with terror. She clamped both hands over her mouth to stifle a scream, pressing her back against the toilet tank. She watched as those bloody bare feet began to pivot, turning toward the door gap as if the owner was crouching down to look inside. In that moment, Bella's mind snapped. She passed out cold right there in the stall. When she woke up, she was in the nurse's office. Her teacher and Chloe had found her. The incident caused such a scene that her parents had to come to the school. Although the administration tried to explain it away as dehydration or a hallucination, Bella knew what she saw. The trauma was so severe, she suffered temporary amnesia. The images flickered in her mind like a nightmare she couldn't quite place. She stayed home for a week, and from then on, she swore never to set foot in the West Wing again. Time passed, and the fear eventually faded. 2 years later, Bella and her friends were seniors. The feeling of ruling the school made them reckless and arrogant. Her core group was 8 people, guys and girls, including Sarah, a quiet, gentle girl who mostly tagged along. With graduation approaching, they wanted to do something legendary. One Saturday night, the guys had an idea. Let's sneak into the old elementary school next door and drink. The old school building sat right next to the high school, partially abandoned and used for storage. Security was lax, and the flat roof was the perfect spot for a secret party. They all agreed. They bought cheap beer, slipped through a hole in the chain-link fence, and climbed up to the roof. The night air was cool, the beer was cold, and the laughter made Bella forget the horror of her sophomore year. But around 9 p.m., the party was crashed. A beam of light cut across the roof. "Hey, you kids, freeze!" The raspy voice of the night janitor boomed out. He had heard the noise and spotted the beer cans. "I'm calling the cops. You're all suspended." Panic erupted. If the cops came, or if the school found out, they wouldn't graduate. "Run! Scatter!" one of the guys yelled. The 8 teenagers scrambled like roaches. The boys vaulted over the fence and disappeared into the street. Bella and Chloe managed to squeeze back through the hole in the fence. But Sarah wasn't so lucky. She was slow and easily frightened. Seeing the angry janitor chasing them in her blind panic, instead of running toward the exit, Sarah turned and ran deeper into the school grounds, heading toward the dark, derelict storage sheds behind the classrooms. The other 7 made it out, regrouping a few blocks away, panting. "Wait, where's Sarah?" Bella asked, looking around. "She probably went a different way," a guy dismissed it. "Forget her, she lives close by. If we go back now, he'll catch all of us." The cowardice and selfishness of youth led them to the worst decision of their lives. They all went home, leaving Sarah alone in the dark. The next morning, shocking news swept through the town. Police cars and ambulances had surrounded the old elementary school. Bella got a text. They found Sarah. "She's in the hospital." Bella and the group were pulled out of class by the police for questioning. At the station, the old night janitor was there, looking shaken. He testified, "I chased those kids. That one girl, she ran toward the old sheds. I shined my light but couldn't find her. I figured she hopped the fence, so I went back to my post. This morning, when I did my rounds, I found her." They had found Sarah unconscious in the corner of a dusty storage room. Her clothes were torn, disheveled, and her body was covered in strange bruises and scratches. When Sarah woke up in the hospital, she wasn't Sarah anymore. She was in a state of total psychotic break. When the detectives tried to question her, she could only stammer out fragmented, terrifying sentences, her eyes wide with trauma. I ran into the dark. I couldn't get out. The walls kept moving. Then I saw him, the dark man. Not the janitor. This one was huge, black as night. He had no face. He chased me. He caught me. Then Sarah would start screaming, "He hit me! He hurt me! Help me!" And most horrifying of all, after the screaming, she would burst into manic hysterical laughter, clawing at her own face and pulling out her hair like a madwoman. The doctors diagnosed her with acute psychosis induced by severe trauma. Police investigated thoroughly. The security cameras in that area had been broken for years. There was no trace of an intruder, no fingerprints on Sarah other than her own. But there were dark rumors among the locals. They said that old storage shed was where a deranged squatter had died years ago, undiscovered. His spirit had claimed that dark corner as his territory, and Sarah, in her panic, had run straight into the devil's den. Sarah never returned to school. She was transferred to a psychiatric institution. The last time Bella visited, Sarah's head had been shaved to stop her from tearing her hair out. She sat hugging her knees in the corner of a white room, muttering and giggling to herself, her empty eyes staring at nothing. Bella says that image haunts her every day. If, on that night, she or anyone else had gone back for Sarah, maybe her friend wouldn't have had to face the faceless man alone. That guilt is scarier than any ghost. The Ghost of My First Love. This story comes from Hunter. He's about 29 or 30 now. It all started when Hunter was in middle school, living in a small, impoverished town in West Virginia. In 6th grade, Hunter was assigned a seat right next to a girl named Hannah, purely because their names were next to each other alphabetically. At first, they hated each other, like cats and dogs. But by 7th and 8th grade, fate kept putting them next to each other. Hannah blossomed, becoming prettier and gentler. The hate turned into a crush, and by 8th grade, they were officially going out, a sweet, innocent puppy love. Then, tragedy struck. Hannah's father fell ill, and the family was bankrupted by massive medical bills. Her parents decided she had to drop out of school to work and help support the family. That year, they both turned 16. Hannah filed the paperwork to drop out. Hunter, young and recklessly in love, decided to drop out too. "If you go, I go," he told her. They both got jobs at a packaging plant in a nearby city. The pay was low, the work was hard, but they had each other. They shared one old bicycle. Every morning, Hunter would pedal, with Hannah sitting on the handlebars or the back pegs, taking her to work. After their shift, to make extra money, Hannah picked up a paper route, delivering local newspapers around the neighborhood on that same bike, while Hunter worked extra hours at a car wash. They were poor, but they were happy. Hunter swore that despite the rough environment they worked in, they never crossed the line. Their love was pure. It lasted a few months. One afternoon, Hunter got off work and waited on a park bench for Hannah to finish her paper route so they could go home together. He waited. 5 p.m., 6 p.m. At 7 p.m., his parents showed up. Their faces were pale. "Hunter, you need to come home. It's Hannah. There was an accident." Her bicycle had been hit by a large pickup truck at an intersection. She died instantly. Hunter was devastated. He cried like a child because Hannah's family was so poor they couldn't afford a funeral home. They held a home viewing, wake, right in their living room. Hunter was heartbroken. He refused to leave her side, staying by the casket day and night. The first night. Exhausted, Hunter fell asleep on the floor, right at the foot of the casket. In the middle of the night, his foot kicked something. Clink. He opened his eyes. It was Hannah's old tin sewing kit. Since dropping out, she carried it everywhere to patch up Hunter's work clothes. It was her most prized possession. Hunter curled up around the tin box, sobbing until he passed out again. The second night. It was the last night before the burial. Friends had forced Hunter to drink some whiskey to numb the pain. He was drunk and passed out on the sofa. In the middle of the night, he woke up needing to use the bathroom. His head was spinning from the liquor. He forgot where he was. He thought it was just a normal day hanging out at Hannah's house. He walked out to the backyard to get some air. Under the moonlight, he saw Hannah. She was standing by the old oak tree, holding onto the bicycle, the same mangled bike the police had returned, which was propped up against the fence. She was wearing her old cloth cap and her newspaper bag slung across her shoulder. She was trying to push the bike, but the wheels were bent and wouldn't turn. Clank, clank. Hunter, in his drunken haze, slurred, "Babe, it's late. No more papers tonight. Come sleep, do it tomorrow." Hannah turned to him. Her voice was sad and hollow. "I have to finish the route, Hunter. There's so many left, but the bike is broken. Can you fix it for me?" Yeah, I'll take a look." Hunter stumbled toward her. Just then, Hannah's uncle, who was smoking on the back porch taking a break from the wake, saw Hunter stumbling around the yard, talking to thin air. He yelled out, "Hunter, what are you doing out there? It's late. Come inside and sit with Hannah. The funeral is tomorrow morning." That sentence hit Hunter like a bucket of ice water. He snapped sober. He looked back at the tree. Hannah was gone. There was only the twisted wreck of the bicycle leaning against the bark. He broke down wailing and ran back inside to hug her casket. After the funeral, Hunter buried himself in work to forget. He worked day and night, days at the plant, nights as a busboy at a local diner. At the diner, there was a waitress named Jessica. She had a crush on Hunter. She liked his mysterious, brooding vibe. She was always bringing him water, asking how he was. But Hunter never responded. His heart was dead. One night, a few weeks later, Hunter was exhausted and running a high fever. While waiting for the diner to close, he snuck into the back storage room, laid down on some sacks of flour, and passed out. In his feverish sleep, he felt a cool hand placed gently on his forehead. It caressed his cheek. He thought it was Jessica. He swatted the hand away, muttering, "Don't, leave me alone." But the hand persisted, stroking his hair. Then he heard a whisper, a voice so familiar it broke his heart. "Are you mad at me? Why are you pushing my hand away? It makes me so sad when you do that." Hunter. It was Hannah's voice. Hunter shot up, drenched in sweat. The storage room was empty. No one was there. He sat there in the dark and cried his eyes out. That was the last time Hunter felt Hannah's presence. After that night, he never saw her or dreamed of her again. Maybe she had finally moved on. But Hunter says, even now, approaching 30, he is still single. Whenever a girl tries to get close, whenever he tries to open his heart, he hits a wall. He feels like he can't move forward. It feels like Hannah is still there, like she hasn't really let go, like she's still holding tight to his heart. He became a biker, drifting from town to town, living a solitary life with the memory of his first love. The Woman Who Ate Trash. This story comes from Jenny. It happened in the late 90s in Chinatown, New York City. Jenny was only about 1 or 2 years old at the time. Jenny's parents were working around the clock to make ends meet, so they left her in the care of her Grandma Lynn. Grandma Lynn didn't have her own place. She lived in a cramped tenement apartment with extended family. It was a tiny one-bedroom place housing over a dozen people, all sleeping on floor mats packed like sardines. Adding a crying toddler to that mix was a recipe for disaster. Jenny would cry at night, disturbing everyone. The relatives started to whisper and complain. "You're old, why are you burdening yourself?" they'd say. "It's too crowded here. The baby is a nuisance." Grandma Lynn was proud. She felt humiliated and unwanted. So, one rainy afternoon, she made a rash decision. She packed their meager belongings, put Jenny in an old stroller, and walked out. She wandered the streets of Chinatown and the Lower East Side, looking for anywhere that would take them. Finding an apartment in New York on a non-existent budget was impossible. She was desperate, sheltering Jenny under the awning of a rundown building on Canal Street, crying softly. Just then, a gust of wind blew a flyer off the wall, landing right at her feet. Handwritten in Chinese and English, "Room for rent, cheap, inquire 3rd floor." It felt like a sign. She carried Jenny and the stroller up 3 flights of dark, narrow stairs. The landlord was a man who worked at the fish markets. He had a small storage room he wanted to rent out for cash. It was tiny and damp, but it was theirs. Grandma Lynn moved in immediately. The first few days were peaceful, but on the 4th day, it started. Every night right after 6 p.m., Jenny would start screaming. She would cling to her grandmother, terrified, refusing to be put down. The building was very old and traditional. Many tenants had bagua mirrors on their doors, and in the dark corners of the stairwells, there were often small red shrines with incense burning for the earth god. The building's rule was that tenants had to leave their trash bags on the stairwell landing at night for the superintendent to collect. Grandma Lynn usually waited until Jenny was asleep, around 10 p.m. to put the trash out. That night, she dragged the bag out to the dark hallway. She heard a sound. Smack, smack, crunch, the wet, sloppy sound of someone eating. She looked up to the landing on the next floor up, just a few feet above her head. In the dim red glow of a shrine light, she saw a woman sitting cross-legged on the floor. The woman looked like a homeless person, matted hair, torn, filthy clothes. She was eating the trash. She was tearing open bags, grabbing chicken bones, old rice and rotting vegetables, and shoving them into her mouth. Smack, smack. Grandma Lynn thought it was just a poor homeless woman who had snuck in. Feeling pity, she called out, "Hey miss, don't eat that, it's dirty. Wait a moment, I'll get you some fresh rice." The woman didn't answer. She just kept eating. Grandma ran back inside, scooped a bowl of hot rice and meat, and ran back out, but the woman was gone. Grandma checked the stairs. Nothing. Just torn trash bags scattered everywhere. Sighing, she left the bowl on the stairs and went back inside. The moment she opened her door, Jenny screamed. Grandma rushed to the bed. There was a long red scratch mark on the baby's cheek, oozing a little blood. Grandma checked the bed for sharp objects but found nothing. She figured the baby scratched herself, applied some ointment, and rocked her back to sleep. The second night, Grandma went to put out the trash. Again, the sound. Smack, crunch. This time, the woman was practically inside a large trash bag. "Miss, I have food for you!" The woman didn't stand up. Instead, she scuttled backward on all fours, crawling up the stairs with the speed and movement of a giant spider. She perched on the top step, holding a half-eaten chicken leg, staring down at Grandma. Grandma left the food and turned away. When she looked back, the woman was gone. And when she entered the room, Jenny was screaming again. Another scratch on her other cheek. The third night. They had eaten fish for dinner. The trash bag was full of fish heads and bones. Grandma hauled the bags out. She didn't see the woman. She turned back to get the last bag. When she came back out, she froze. The woman was sitting right next to the bag Grandma had just dropped. She had ripped it open and was holding a raw, rotting fish head. She was gnawing on it. Grandma lost her temper. She thought this woman was refusing her charity to eat filth on purpose. "Hey, why do you eat trash when I offer you rice? That's disgusting." Grandma walked up and tapped the woman on the shoulder. The woman slowly turned her head. Her hair was greasy and matted, covering half her face. But the skin was rotting and covered in sores, oozing yellow pus. Her nose was missing a chunk. Her eyes were nothing but whites, veined with red. And the mouth, her teeth were jagged, sharp, and pointed like an animal's, growing in all directions, protruding from her lips. Her mouth was stuffed with fish bones and raw heads, crunching them, while blood and black fluid dribbled down her chin. Grandma was paralyzed with horror. She stumbled back, chanting, "Nam Mo Adi Da Fat, Nam Mo Adi Da Fat," a Buddhist prayer for protection. She scrambled to her feet and ran back to her apartment, slamming the door. Just as she locked it, she heard Jenny, laughing, not crying, laughing, a happy baby giggle. Grandma spun around. The sight nearly stopped her heart. Sitting on the wooden stool right next to the bed was the woman, the monster. She had moved faster than Grandma, passing through the walls. She was leaning over the baby. Her red eyes were bulging. Her mouth, filled with sharp teeth and fish guts, was pulled back in a horrific grin, inches from Jenny's face. And Jenny, she was laughing at the monster, reaching her little hands up, trying to touch that hideous face. Grandma dropped to her knees and bowed, slamming her head on the floor. "Please, I beg you. She's just a baby. Don't hurt her. Take me instead. Please." She kowtowed and cried, praying to every god she knew. Seeing her grandmother crying, Jenny's face crumpled, and she started to wail. The moment the baby cried, the figure of the woman flickered, faded, and dissolved into the air. Grandma didn't wait. She grabbed a blanket, wrapped Jenny up, and ran out of that apartment in the middle of the night. She ran all the way to a relative's house blocks away. She banged on the door, sobbing, and told them everything. The next morning, the family went back to move her stuff out. The landlord refused to return the deposit, but Grandma didn't care. She realized her pride had almost cost her granddaughter's life. She moved back in with the relatives, accepting the crowding and the complaints as long as Jenny was safe. Years later, Jenny's parents saved enough to buy a house and took Grandma in. But Grandma Lynn never forgot the face of the hungry ghost eating trash in that old Chinatown tenement. A sultry night with a ghost. This story comes from Leo. It happened in 2013 when he was 17. Leo lived in Chicago and had a best friend named Nina. They had been friends since middle school, like brother and sister, zero romance. Leo went on to college, but Nina didn't. She confessed to Leo that she was burned out and wanted to quit. But Nina's family, who lived in rural Wisconsin, was extremely conservative and religious. Her parents told her, "If you don't go to college, your only path is marriage. A girl who isn't educated needs to settle down, have kids, or else she'll just sit around, get into trouble, and shame the family." Nina, who was only 16 or 17, just wanted to quit school, so she promised, "Fine, I'll get married." A year passed and Nina's parents started pressuring her. "My parents keep setting me up," Nina complained to Leo over coffee in Chicago. "Just pick one," Leo said. "It's a big country." "That's the problem," Nina hesitated. "I can't hide it from you. I'm a lesbian. I don't like guys." Leo was shocked. "What? We've been best friends for years and you never told me?" "Well, now you know. My parents would kill me. What am I going to do?" Then, Nina pitched a very movie-like plan. "Leo, you have to pretend to be my boyfriend." Nina's parents had never met Leo. "Are you crazy?" Leo panicked. "You're a girl and I don't even want to marry you. What if they force us to do it for real?" "They won't," Nina pleaded. "We have our annual family reunion soon. Come home with me. I'll introduce you as my boyfriend." "You just tell them you're in college and can't get married for another 4 years until you graduate. That'll buy me 4 years. Please, help me." Leo was a broke college student. "I'll pay for your bus ticket. You get 3 days of free food in Wisconsin, and I'll even pay you for your time." Leo felt weird about it, but he sympathized with her, so he agreed. A week later, they took a bus to Wisconsin. Nina's home was a huge, isolated dairy farm. They had to take the bus, then get a truck ride down a long dirt road. Nina's parents were overjoyed to see Leo. "Oh, Nina's boyfriend. We've heard so much." They were so enthusiastic, they were already telling Leo to call them Mom and Dad. Leo started to get scared. That night was the family reunion. Relatives gathered, eating, talking, and playing cards. Leo was forced to drink quite a bit. He pulled Nina aside. "Hey, I'm really worried your parents are going to make me sleep in the same room as you. I'm drunk. Fake relationship, real consequences. You know, that could be bad." Nina panicked too. She was a lesbian. She didn't want to sleep with a guy either. She moved to Plan B. She called over a guy named Luke. "This is my cousin Luke," Nina introduced. Then she whispered to Leo, "I gave Luke some money. In a minute, he'll pretend to invite you out to the guest cabin to keep partying. You see that little wooden cabin over there?" Leo looked. A few hundred yards from the main house, there was a small, simple wooden cabin. "You go with him. You can sleep out there tonight. In the morning, just say you two got drunk and passed out. That way, you're safe. You don't have to sleep with me." Leo sighed. "Wow. Pretending to be your boyfriend gets me banished to a cabin. I'll pay you extra." Luke was already pretty drunk. The two guys went to the cabin. Didn't really drink more. Just sat and smoked, talking. Luke kept muttering about some tragedy. Poor girl. The two sisters, but the older one. Luke was slurring, and Leo was drunk, so he didn't understand. Leo only vaguely caught that Nina had an older sister named Tessa, and apparently Tessa was treated badly by the family while Nina was the golden child. After a while, Leo got too sleepy and climbed into the bed to sleep first. In the middle of the night, Leo woke up with stabbing stomach pains. The rich farm food must not have agreed with his city stomach. The outhouse by the cabin was dark and terrifying. Leo was a Chicago kid. He wasn't about to go use an outhouse in the dark. He clenched his stomach and ran to the main house. Luckily, the door was unlocked. He slipped in, went straight to the bathroom, and was in there for over 10 minutes. Finished, he zipped up and was walking out, still hunched over. He. A soft, cute-sounding giggle. Leo looked up. Leaning against the kitchen counter was a girl. Leo assumed it was Nina. She was wearing pajamas, arms crossed, leaning back. Her long hair covered half her face, her head tilted, and she was smiling at him. Leo was embarrassed. "Geez, you're still up? What are you doing standing here? It stinks, I just used the bathroom. Go to bed." He turned and walked toward the door to go back to the cabin. He heard footsteps following him. He figured Nina was just following him to go to her own room. But when he passed Nina's bedroom door, the footsteps were still right behind him. Leo stopped and turned. The girl, who he still thought was Nina, was a few feet away, shyly brushing her hair back, peeking at him and smiling. It was the look a girl gives a guy she's into. Leo was stunned. What's wrong with her? She told me she was a lesbian. Hey, Leo said. What's with you? Your sexuality just temporary? Why are you looking at me like that? The girl just smiled shyly. Look, Leo held up his hands. I'm serious. Friends is fine, but I'm not doing this fake relationship, real feelings thing. Go to bed. He went out the main glass door, closing it behind him. He looked back. The girl didn't go to her room. She walked over and stood in front of the fireplace mantel. She stood there, her back to Leo. Go to bed, Leo called through the glass. The girl slowly turned, smiled at him, then took one step toward the bedroom and vanished, just dissolved into thin air. Leo's skin crawled. Huh? Where'd she go? He opened the door, stuck his head back in. No one. I must be drunker than I thought. He walked the few hundred yards back to the cabin. The Wisconsin night was clear and full of stars. As he got to the cabin door, he heard it again. He. Leo jumped, looking through the cabin window. He saw the girl again. She was sitting cross-legged on the bed. Same long hair, same shy smile. Leo was annoyed. Damn, she ran out here ahead of me. Hey, what the hell? I told you no. What are you doing in my cabin? Go back to the house. Stop messing with me. The girl just sat there, smiling. Leo, angry, thinking Nina was playing a joke, shoved the wooden cabin door open. Bang! He stepped inside. The bed was empty. Before he could even process it, he heard footsteps. Squish, squish, on the dirt path behind him. He turned, looking out the window. The girl was outside, walking slowly on the dirt path back to the main house. She kept looking back at Leo, smiling that same shy smile. Leo slammed the door. Damn it, she's drunk. What's wrong with her? He didn't understand how she'd gotten outside so fast. He locked the cabin door, climbed into his bed, and fell asleep. Around 2 or 3 a.m., Leo woke up. The sober up, the part where you're still drunk but feel awful. He was dizzy, nauseous, and had to pee again. He stumbled to the door, fumbled it open, and just relieved himself right outside the cabin. He was too sick to care. He stumbled back in. As he went back in, Leo vaguely saw someone was already lying in his bed, but he was too drunk to register it. He just climbed into bed and lay down. Leo said it was a dreamlike, hazy sensation. He felt the girl climb on top of him, taking his clothes off. And they were intimate. Leo said in his drunken state he couldn't fight it. He just knew it felt very real, very passionate. He vaguely remembered seeing Nina's face as they were together. The next morning, Leo woke up head pounding. He saw he was completely naked, his clothes tossed under the bed, and there were undeniable traces of the encounter on the sheets. Oh my God. Nina. Leo held his head. She said she was a lesbian. Or was I so drunk? Did I? But he remembered the feeling. It was intense. He thought, maybe she's not a lesbian. Maybe she actually likes me. To be honest, Nina is pretty. We get along. If she's into it, maybe I could be too. With this confused mindset, Leo got dressed and walked to the main house. It was 7 a.m. the day of the main reunion. He saw Nina in the kitchen cutting vegetables. He walked up, sat next to her, watching her. Nina looked up, smiled. Morning. Sleep well out there? Leo tried to wink, nudging her. Yeah, it was fun. Nina frowned. What's wrong with you? Just then, a relative walked by, and Nina immediately went into character. Oh, honey, can you wipe my forehead for me? But when the relative left, Leo tried to grab Nina's hand. She snatched it away. Dude, what the hell? No one's watching. Stop acting. Last night, Leo stammered. Last night, you and me. What about last night? Nina looked confused. I got drunk. I passed out in my room. What are you talking about? Leo was completely lost. That afternoon, around noon, everyone was napping before the afternoon events. Leo went to the bathroom again. When he came out, he saw the girl again. It was Nina, but wearing different clothes than she was that morning. Standing in the kitchen, same shy smile. This time, Leo didn't say anything. He walked up and grabbed her hand. The girl didn't pull away, just smiled. "What's going on?" Leo asked. She just smiled. Just then, they heard people stirring upstairs. "I'm going up to help," Leo said. He walked up the stairs, the girl following him. But when Leo got to the top step, he looked back. She was gone. He saw the real Nina emerge from her bedroom, yawning. "Huh? You were just in the kitchen." "What are you talking about? I was asleep." Leo was furious. "This girl is messing with my head." That afternoon, after a few more beers, Leo was buzzed. He pulled Nina into the backyard. "Tell me the truth, Nina. Who are you? Why are you hot and cold? You came to the cabin last night and slept with me, didn't you?" Nina slapped him hard. "Are you insane? I told you I'm a lesbian. I don't like men. Don't you dare say that." "I'm lying," Leo yelled back. "I may have been drunk, but I know what happened. We did it. The evidence is still in the cabin. Come with me." He grabbed her hand, dragging her toward the cabin, pointing. "Go look in there. Last night you and I..." Leo was pointing, and as he looked up at the cabin, he froze. Nina was standing right next to him, and another Nina was sitting inside the cabin, looking out the window, smiling at him with that same shy, post-coital look. What, Nina? Who's in there?" Leo stammered. Nina, the real one, looked at him like he was crazy. "You're drunk, Leo!" She ripped her hand away and stormed back to the house. Leo looked back at the cabin. The girl inside was gone. He suddenly remembered Luke's drunken muttering. "Sister, Tessa." He ran into the house looking for Luke. "Luke, what did you tell me last night? Nina has a sister?" Luke nodded, his face sad. "Yeah. Her sister Tessa, 2 years older than Nina. She died 5 years ago." "Died? How?" "Bit by a rabid raccoon." Leo's blood ran cold. "The fireplace. Where's her picture?" "In the house, but Nina's parents are devout. They put Tessa's photo in an old album on the bookshelf. They don't like to display it. They believe the dead are with God and you shouldn't hold on. It keeps their spirit from moving on." Leo ran, trembling, to the bookshelf and found the old album. There, on a yellowed page, was a small portrait. A young girl. She looked exactly like Nina, just slightly softer, a few years younger. He dragged Nina outside. You had a sister named Tessa who died, didn't you?" Nina nodded. "How did you know?" "Oh my God, I've been seeing her all weekend. I thought it was you." He told her everything. The giggle in the kitchen, following him, and the horrifying, intimate night in the cabin. Nina turned pale. "Oh my God. Tessa," Nina explained. "Her sister Tessa died at 15. The tragedy was, at the time, she was deeply in love. She was in love with a 17-year-old boy. The families had even expected them to get married one day. They never got the chance to be together before Tessa was bitten and died." Leo finally understood. Tessa's spirit, perhaps dying with so much unfulfilled love and desire, saw Leo, her sister's fake boyfriend. And maybe the ghost was confused or just lonely and saw her chance. They were both terrified and ran to the small family cemetery on the property to apologize. Nina pleaded, "Sister, that's my friend. He's not my boyfriend. Please, leave him alone." That afternoon, Leo couldn't stay any longer. He took the first bus back to Chicago. He said, thankfully, Tessa never followed him again, and that's where the story ends. Leo said that about a year later, Nina finally did come out to her family. Of course, they didn't accept it at first, but over time, seeing their daughter was happy, successful, and still the person they loved, they finally came to accept her.